Guys, can you hear me now? All right, guys, thanks a lot. So what is SAP, right? So SAP is an ERP software or application. The whole point of this package or software is to efficiently run businesses using SAP in various divisions like procurement, inventory, warehouse management, finances, quality management, customer relationship management, business intelligence, and whatever that might be. So basically, ERP is the foundation for SAP. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning Solution. So basically, it's an idea where an enterprise can basically make use of this idea to run their business efficiently. And obviously, SAP is one of the topmost package nowadays in the industry, which actually helps businesses to run efficiently, right? Now, in order for you to understand what SAP is, you need to understand what ERP basically is and how it is without ERP. So let us assume today we are still in 1980s and we don't have a software to run businesses. And if you look at the slide, this basically says if you don't have ERP, right? And we have a customer who's taking his call a sales agent or manager who is in a remote location, and eventually sales manager takes the order, writes it down, and calls production guys and find out, hey guys, do you have this car available? And at the same time, he's checking the inventory first, obviously, and the inventory is not available, so he checks with the production planning guys, can you guys make this car available in this particular time? And obviously inventory and production has to coordinate in terms of delivering the product. And production guys takes the order and then contact the purchasing guy, says, you know what, I need to manufacture a car or assemble a car within December 2013, December 31st, 2013, and I don't have a couple of tires, I don't have a windshield, I don't have instrument panels, etc. And the purchasing guys will take the necessary orders and contact the vendors and buys the raw materials and eventually brings it to the production shop floor, and the shop floor guys will manufacture and then eventually loads it in the inventory, and the sales guys will eventually sell it to the customer. It's a very simple process. Okay, we're not getting too much into this complication. This is an automobile company, and the customer is trying to order a car. So if you didn't have a software, any ERP software, this becomes a very manual and very paper-based process, and without having SAP, things a lot of things can get missed, and data visibility is not there, the accuracy will not be there, and the speediness will not be there, and there's so many things are missing out, which is a very common sense that you all will understand now, because without an application or software, running businesses is almost difficult nowadays. But this is how it used to be before, right? And then came in applications, or softwares. And before we get there, if you look at this picture or this slide here, you will see sales have to interact with customers, sales have to interact with accounts receivables for getting the payment from the customer. Accounts will have to work with getting general ledgers. Sales have to work with purchasing to make sure the necessary the raw materials are purchased. Purchasing has to work with vendors. Purchasing has to work with accounts payable to pay the vendors. Then purchasing has to work with inventory to receive the materials from the vendors in the inventory. Inventory has to work with production planning and shop floor execution and production, and so many different interactions. So if you see, every module or every department or every division within an organization has to interact. I don't see there is any divisions or organization within any organization that does not interact. When all the divisions or departments within any company interact and integrate, in terms of delivering a product or delivering some services to a customer, that's obviously the final goal, then we obviously need to have a package or software that can do similar thing, in a very efficient manner. I'm not saying SAP is running the business. SAP is used to run the business. Okay, so you need to understand that there's a difference. Businesses still run the business people, but they make use of SAP to run it efficiently. To realize value on the time and investment and money they're spending. So what is SAP, right? SAP stands for, System A and whatever, Product A. That's basically what it means in German language, but it's Systems, Application, Product for Data Processing. That's what SAP stands for. And, it's been a while when we started this package, and we have two main SAP packages, SAP and Oracle. Obviously, SAP is outrunner, and they are doing really very different and in advanced manner, and obviously outrunning Oracle in many aspects. Who knows? They might even buy Oracle in some time, but we don't know that. So they're unbeatable at the moment. And why SAP? The SAP primarily why they are really famous in the market is because of the integration aspect. It is one of the best tools of software that's available in the market that can actually integrate with other modules in SAP, so that we don't have to create separate softwares or separate packages, separate installs for different departments. We go back 25 years before. We used to have different teams in a company writing codes for finance, writing codes for inventory, writing codes for purchasing and sales order management, and accounts receivables, etc. So different teams. Some will be writing stuff in COBOL language. Some will be writing stuff in Java language. Some in Windows-based applications. So all these are different tools and softwares that we use within the same exact company to run their business and integrating them. They all was done very artificially and manually, and it was a single task. That's how it used to be before. But now we have one single application, an ERP application like SAP, that can basically integrate within different departments or modules in SAP, we said, and eventually deliver the necessary value to the business. And another great thing about SAP is it's customizable. When I say customizable, it basically means that imagine SAP is like a pot of clay, and when you get the clay from SAP, you can mold the clay to make it look like a horse or an elephant or a dog or a cat or a fish, right? So that's exactly what customization basically means here. You can change, you can make SAP to behave in the way you want to run your business. That's the idea. So you might be, let's take an example of automobile company we saw, which is basically in the business of, assembling assembling the car, buying the raw materials from the vendors or suppliers, and selling in the market, collecting money from the customers, paying the vendors, managing the inventory, and getting it or receiving orders from online, and maintaining customer relationships with other customers. Very normal automobile company. So in this company, we just don't have one automobile company in the world, right? We have tons of them. We have a bunch of automobile companies: Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, and Tata, and there are so many different companies in the market. And every company is an automobile company. That's what I just told. But they all are different, correct? By the nature of how the business functions, the nature of how they actually do stuff, in terms of delivering the product, their ideology, their way of doing business, their way of managing inventory, their way of whatever they do, it's all different. That's why they are different. That's why we have differences. So SAP, rather than programming a package for different companies, we come up with a standard set of templates. That's what SAP is. And that set of templates is given to each and every automobile company. Okay, keep in mind, we're only talking from automobile standpoint. It applies to pharmaceutical, it applies to oil and gas, or whatever different industry sectors we have. And And these companies will modify or customize SAP to meet their business needs. That's exactly what customization means here. So that's what happens during implementation. That's the whole idea of implementation. Another thing is about SAP is it's available in many languages. We can have one single implementation, and we can leverage SAP solution in different countries across different continents and different languages. And if you see, that's really a very cost-effective way of managing, running their business on ERP system like SAP. Rather than implementing something in French and Spanish and English and Chinese, we can have one big bang implementation, but that also covers different modules, different languages as well. So these are a couple of important things, but obviously that is own other skew of advantages of why SAP is one of the best solutions in the market. And nowadays SAP is not only for bigger companies. It's also targeting smaller companies, medium-level companies for implementation. It's also targeting smaller companies as well, providing very cost-effective, cloud-based solutions in SAP. So, SAP is trying to become another Google. That's how, a lot of people in my circle look at it, and it's a very important thing to remember. So either way, at this point, let's take a quick 20-second, 30-second break. I just want to make sure you all can see my screen and hear me properly, so that I'm not really talking to myself. So please type in your message, guys. Can you all hear me properly and see my screen? I got a couple of responses here, guys. Thanks a lot. I'm sorry I have to do this often because once I did the whole presentation for about 35 minutes, and then I realized I was on mute all 35 minutes. A few years back, I don't want that to happen. I just want to make sure you all can hear me and see my screen. Okay, so let's get back. So obviously, SAP is a software, and we use that software or package to run our businesses on. That's what the client or customer does. And the way the SAP is architectured is, we have 3 layers. One is the presentation, one is the application layer, and the database layer, right? The presentation layer is what you actually use to, connect to the servers and do. Like, you have a GUI, and you log into GUI, and access SAP. In the background, you have an application layer, which basically is the actual server, which actually gives the data to the presentation layer. And obviously, it's connected to the database. Let's take a quick look about, what I'm just trying to say here. So what I'm, once you guys, have access to SAP, and once you install SAP, you don't really install SAP nowadays. You actually connect to SAP because usually SAP is on the cloud, and you have remote access to the systems. And once you do the installation of the GUI system, or application, you get a small icon like this on your desktop, wherever you put it. And so if you see, so this SAP logon pad appears on your desktop, and if you click on the logon pad, it basically takes you to a screen where you can log into different systems. And obviously, you need to set up each one of the systems here, right? So obviously, set up 101 ERP, you get the setup information from the trainer or the company who is actually giving you the setup information. And then you click on log on, it basically takes you to a log on screen, which is a blue screen, and where you can put in the client information, user, password, and all those different details. So we see, let's assume we have a server, and obviously SAP is installed on a server, right? And which is another hardware device or a computer. And the whole server is joined in multiple clients, and every client, has different users, and you'll be given in the client 100, client 200, client 300. Client 100 might be used for testing purposes. Client 200 might be used for configuration purposes. Client 300 might be used for business simulation, for sandbox purposes. A client is nothing but another snapshot of another client with a different set of data, because every user will have their own set of data. So when you log in, you will have to provide which client you want to log into. In this case, I'm putting 800 client. I put the user ID, and then I basically put in the password which was given to me. And if you see, then I log in. So once I log into SAP, I get this first screen called an easy access screen. And this is where I start off with, doing, my necessary things. Before I go into what I'm really doing, I just want to show you guys this is how I log into SAP from the GUI. GUI is nothing but a small software that we install on your desktop. Even without GUI, you can log into SAP using web GUI if you have access to the web GUI. Okay, but that's another thing. But and now what you see here is called presentation layer. Okay. And you will be seeing, I'll be logging in, and like that, thousands of users will log into the, presentation layer, and that's exactly what this particular screen, diagram is. Presentation layers, they are logged in by different users, but they all connect to the same application servers, and then eventually to the database in Oracle, which is our normally used database. And maybe SAP will replace Oracle with HANA in the near future. That's one of the reasons why I think they bought about HANA, so that they don't have to be dependent on Oracle anymore. So keeping that discussion aside, but eventually that's how it is connected. So whatever you log into is called presentation layer, and then you connect to an application layer, and eventually to a database. How do you know all these information is, once you connect to SAP, and you're on the easy access screen, go to systems and you click on status. That will basically give you some information about the system itself. Which server you're connected to. In this case, you're connected to the user ID, you're connected to the server, and this is the database. In this case, in MS SQL, not Oracle. Yeah, we can do in MS SQL, Oracle, whatever it might be. And obviously, some more technical information about, but this is obviously the, server that we're connecting to. So, but either way, these are all technical stuff. So, come back to our slide here. So next slide is for you to understand what does consultants do, right? So obviously we have two different types of consultants. One is SAP functional consultant, one is technical consultant. Okay, so so what does a functional consultant do? They don't do programming, but technical consultants do programming. Functional consultants are usually MM, IM, WM, SD, FICO, HCM, CRM, BI, BW, and they all are functional consultants. Technical consultants are usually based in ABAP guys. So functional people or consultants, they analyze and propose solutions in SAP without any necessary programming activity. On the other hand, technical consultants does analyze and propose solutions, but from technical standpoint. We'll look into some examples of what functional consultant does and what technical consultant does on a high level. But the functional consultant does a lot of configuration, the right test script, execute testing, we support and fix problems, the right functional specs. They work on blueprinting documents, prepare key decision documents. They interact a lot with the team members and business partners and all this stuff. Technical consultants, on the other hand, they work very closely with functional consultants, in arriving custom solution. They also work on fixing problems and they analyze solution, but from custom standpoint. When I say custom, here custom, when obviously the wording I use to customization before is from business standpoint. Customization is making sure SAP can be customized to meet business needs, right? That's from business point of view. But once you come into SAP world, right? Custom means that is not standard SAP. Keep in mind this is how the industry behaves. So whatever ABAP guys do, we say custom. Whatever programming or other stuff that is done, it's all called custom. Then also the ABAP guys will work on writing technical specifications and and working closely with the functional teams and everything. So the two things, two important roles that anybody plays in SAP consultant. Obviously we have end user role, which is not a consultant role, which is an end user role. Our focus is functional and technical. So that's typically on a high level what a functional consultant, technical consultant do. So let's take a look into SAP. Coming back to our login page, easy access screen here. If you see, this is the easy access screen, and there is some navigational menus here. You can go into each of these menus, explore yourself. Let's say we can go into materials management, purchasing, and purchase order, and I can create a purchase order by just navigating this way. I mean, I'm clicking on this node here. Obviously purchase orders are something that we create in SAP so that we can tell the vendor what we basically need to purchase and what we need in our organization. And taking a bit of time to load, but once it loads, you will see that you will see the purchase order screen. And then similarly, we have different sections here for if you have report section for reporting with inbound delivery or purchase requisitions and master data and all those different things. So while this is loading, so what I basically did, I created another screen, right? So all I did is, SAP does allow me to do something when something else is processing. All I did is I went to this initial, the screen on the small icon on the top left, and I clicked on create session. So it created this session for me, that second session. So now, obviously, this also opened up the purchase order screen, and I can go and put the material or purchase order quantity that I want to buy. I don't want to go in details about these screens here, but that's how I go into some transaction in SAP. This is the transactional data. The transactional data is something that is done on a day-to-day basis by the business users, right? Now, I can also go to this purchase order screen by typing in ME21N, which is basically the transactional code, a T-code we say it is in SAP. That's the code that we use to actually, directly go to a particular transaction. So in this case, I went to purchase order screen. So let's say if I go to, then I go back, then let's say I want to go to sales on screen, VA01. So then I put in VA01 and I go to the sales order screen. Here's the sales order screen. So I go back and then let's say I want to look at the IDOC. IDOC is a concept in SAP where we take in data from SAP and send it out of SAP and receive it into SAP. So there is the monitor where we keep track of all the IDOC receipts. So WE02 is the transaction code, and I go into W02, and I click execute, and obviously we don't have any IDOCs, but this is how we do it. So what I'm doing is, I can either go into the navigation and I look into different, nodes, and I can log into different, transactions, or I can directly go in here and, access different transaction codes, different transactions. So which is called using a transaction code. Doing a transaction code is very difficult because there are hundreds and thousands of them. Right? But obviously that's for all SAP, but you might be very specific to something of some interest. In order for you to keep, list of all the transaction codes, you can basically do what is said in this video. You go to this video in 8mm-smile.com, which is our networking portal. We load some videos here and test and all the other things. And one of the videos here will basically give you an idea of SAP T-code finder. You can find different T-codes in SAP that you can use to do different transactions. Okay, so either way, so that's some basic information about how to access something, access some transaction codes. Now obviously this is the easy access screen. So obviously this is the easy access screen. I see a couple of folks have been asking some questions. I know you guys are asking questions. Let's keep the questions at the end of the session. I'll definitely come back to your questions in order in which I will see the questions, guys. So if you see, looking at the screen itself, a couple of icons here. One of the icons basically is about going back. Killing the sessions and finding something, and all those things are basic things that you can explore and do stuff. So let's say I want to open multiple sessions. What I see here is a session. So this is one session, right? And I want to open multiple sessions. So what I do is I put /n, press enter, opens another session. I got one session. I got two sessions. I see one session. And the second session, you can't open it. Okay, second session, right? The one and the second one. Now I want to open another one, /n. We got another one. The 1, 2, and let me do /o instead. So I do /o, I create another session, right? So I have 3 sessions. I do another /o, I got another session. Likewise, I can go up to 6 sessions, I believe. 4, /o, 5, /o. Oh, you know what, I can't go more than that because I've already reached my number of sessions, which is 6. So you can go up to 6 sessions and you can do different things. It allows you to process, on that way. But for our discussion's sake, we'll stick with 1 or 2 sessions. We'll close the other sessions here. So we come back to our easy access screen. I click on start easy access and I go back into my easy access screen. So now this is what the business users do. They go into material master, create material master, they create purchase order, sales order, everything. But as a consultant, where do you do a lot of your configuration? Obviously consultants do configuration, consultants do programming work, right? Functional consultants and technical consultants respectively. So functional consultant has a major role to play in SPRO transaction. SPRO is the location where for a transaction code that we use to customize the system. We customize SAP so that it meets my business needs. So we customize enterprise structure, you go into, and build in all the company code and everything. The finance guys does it. Obviously, materials management, the consultants do whatever they need to do from materials management standpoint. We have similar plant maintenance, production, sales and distribution, quality management, HR, etc. And the programmers, obviously, they do a lot of stuff in SC38 transaction code where they go and build their report, build their solution, and there are a bunch of other transaction code they use, but this is actually a starting point. ABAP editor where they go and write their programming, the code to do whatever they need to. So if you see, we have different transactional codes. So what you should realize from at this point is SAP is a transactional based application. Okay? Where you can access different transactions using transactional codes or obviously through nodes. So keep in mind there are so many different transaction codes, but unless you practice, you're not going to remember them. Obviously, it's very difficult to remember. Even after 17 years, I probably remember only 17 transaction codes, right? And I'm not in the field, and you probably remember more than me. It's because after several years, you tend to forget transaction codes, or you don't use certain transaction codes. You only use, another set of transaction codes. But that's not what the client expects during the interview. A client expects you to know more than, what the reality is, and they probably want you to, know different transaction codes in some cases, and it's important that you keep in mind. Unless you practice, keep in touch with the transaction codes, you won't remember them. But if you had worked in a field, you should remember that, at least as a consultant. Once you become a lead and manager and all those things, you usually lose touch with transaction codes anyway. But either way, if you click on, let's say you go to a transaction VA01, right? And this is a state of transaction. If you want to go back, you can do a back, or you can basically kill the session and go back. Now, there's different ways of doing it. And let's say you're in VA01 again, and you want to jump onto another transaction code, and without killing this session. So you do /n ME21N, which means that if this /n is a code that you use, and is a transaction code you want to jump into, and you click enter, you see SAP opens another session with that new transaction code. So if you see, I have this, I'm sorry, in this case, it's actually not /n to create a new session, it's keeping the existing session. So if you see VA01, and I do /o ME21N. So this way, I have VA01 open, at the same time I have ME21N open, same sessions, this else here. But if you want to kill the VA01 and open up ME21, you do ME21N. That way, you basically kill an existing session and open another session. So the way the transactional codes behave, they all are the same way. Okay, so you don't have to worry about, I'm an FI, I'm a QM, and I'm, SD, MM, and I'm giving you some examples in MM and SD. It doesn't matter. They all behave the same way. Okay, so those are basic things in SAP. So another important topic as a consultant that you need to understand, or from a SAP standpoint, is difference in master data and transactional data. There are three different types of data, but we'll go into two of them right now. One is the master data, one is the transactional data. Right? So I have another set of presentation. This is usually another presentation, but let me quickly go over this one. So the transactional data, it's called transactional data. Business users work with transactional data on their normal daily activities. The transactional data can be created automatically as a result of a workflow process or a result of another process in SAP, or you can create it manually as well. The users can do it manually as well. Consultants as a consultant, you work with transactional data during your project period. When you do the actual implementation, that's when you work with transactional data, like creating purchase orders, creating sales orders, creating GL accounts and entries, creating, payroll entries, or all those different transactional data. You only do it during your testing period as a consultant. You don't do it in the production environment. Production environment is used by the business team to do the daily operation. Also, the consultants work with transactional data during support period to look at in that SAP to identify root cause. Obviously, once the implementation is done, we leave the support phase, and the consultant needs to assist the business. And in order to assist the business, sometimes you need to look at the data. So what we saw today is sales order, purchase order, VA01, and ME21, they all are sales order and purchase orders in SAP. And they all are transactional data in SAP, right? And you don't deal with them on a day-to-day basis in your SAP career as a consultant. But if you're an end user, that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. So transactional data may never be changed, but can be deleted or archived. That's not really true. You can really change the transactional data obviously there are different cases, or in some cases you can change them, some cases you can change them. Once it is processed, or once the transaction is processed, you can't change them. That's how it should be written here. But if it is not processed, then obviously you can change them. Let's say creation of a purchase order. You create a purchase order, and at once you create the purchase order, yes, you can change them. If you want to change the data, if you want to change, the material, all those things. But once it's created, once it's sent to the vendor, and the vendor is doing all the other processes, you can't change that. There are some limitations to it. Once it goes to feed and all. So the idea here is, let's assume that you should not change the transactional data. You probably need to end up creating new transactional data. So the transactional data is owned by the business. Right. Once you go into production, once the system is ready for use by SAP business users in the production environment, it is owned by the business. It's not owned by the consultants. The consultants are not allowed typically to execute transactional data in the production environment. Obviously, you are a consultant. You're not a business user. Only business users own the transactional data. And transaction data sometimes associated with legal entities. There might be some legal implications on if you change something. Examples: ME21N, MIGO, LT03, F-43, PA61. These are all different transaction codes within different modules: MMI, MW, FIQ, XR, TM, etc. These are transactional data. On the other hand, master data, right, which is another set of data, is commonly or reusable. It's a common or reusable data. Transactional data requires some values from the master data so they can build a transactional data around it. Without a material master data created, we can't create a transactional data. The material master is nothing but an idea. It's a concept in SAP where that's an important object in the concept in SAP where we create an entry in SAP about what kind of service or the product we are trying to buy or supply or produce and everything. Right? Everything is around something, right? You are obviously in manufacturing, or you are in the automobile, or you are in distribution, or you are in pharmaceutical. But what are you doing every day? You are selling something, right? And what you are selling is a product, or you are selling some service. It's a service. Let's take example product. You are selling a product. In order to manufacture the product, you need several other raw materials. So it's a material. Product is a material. So everything is a material. So your car is a finished product. In order to manufacture our car, you need to have several raw materials: the tires, the instrument panels, the windshield wipers, and the AC and compressor and whatever, right? So we see all these are materials which are components or raw materials used in the manufacturing of the finished product car. So the car itself is a material master. It's a material, and we create a master data in SAP called as a core, and that core is data. That doesn't change often, like another data. It doesn't change often. It does change in some cases, in constant basis. But we use that object, material master object, in our transactional data for sales order creation, purchase order creation. You're creating a purchase order for what? Buying raw materials. Creating a sales order for what? Supplying the finished product to customers. Right? So there is materials involved here. And similarly, you're paying your vendor for what? The vendor supplies the material. You're buying money, you're getting money from your customer for what? Accounts receivable. Why are you getting money? Because the customer received these products. So if you see all these, everything is around materials. That's what we call, in other ERP systems, they call it products. I think in some other ERP systems, they call it items. Items of products and material, they all mean the same. But in SAP, we call it material. But anyway, different users can access master data at the same time in display mode, and it can be changed as often as needed, but it doesn't really change so often. It helps in creating transaction data easily, and transaction data is requires material master data for successful posting. So there are two different set of example: material master, vendor master, bill of material, personal file in HR, GL account in a 5CO module. They all are master data. So two different sets of data: transactional data, master data. Both the transactional data and master data is created by business users, right? Because they own them. Transaction data, they are done on a day-to-day basis. Master data is something that they set up and they use it. That's what master data basically is. It supplies information for the transactional data so that the transactional data can be prepared and they can run their normal day-to-day activities. All right, so that's quick recap or quick discussion into what master data, transaction data and master data is. So going back to the SAP screen here, obviously it's an easy access screen. If you want for you to create a material master data, you need to use MM01 transaction code. You go into MM01 transaction code. You see at the bottom it says start of application, create material master, and you can create some material, some material master. I can say SAM 101, all these things, and it's in mechanical engineering department company, and I want to create a raw material. And this is all messed up. I click enter and I go into different screens. It asks me to enter a lot of data. So let me enter a couple of fields here. So I want to say which plant it belongs to. Obviously, a material has to belong to some plant. Plant is nothing but is a place where we store the material or we manufacture the material. So when I say there are so many different fields that I need to enter, and I want to go into details, but there are so many different tabs and so many fields that you enter, and every field, every tab that is listed here has some importance. It is used somewhere. Okay, it's not something that we just take in and we don't use it. It's also used. It's always used somewhere. So now, if you're seeing, I want to show you guys some documents. I already have this document, so I don't worry about it. Hopefully you'll find this document. That basically gives you an idea about the layout and how a plant looks like. Because we talked about plant, I just want to bring this up. We have, in any, let's say, manufacturing environment, we have, a manufacturing area where manufacturing happens, and we have another area where we store inventory. When let's say we order a raw material from a supplier, and supplier ships raw material, and the vendor or supplier's truck comes into an area called a goods receipt area. That's where we receive the inventory into our plant. And then we send the inventory in the quality inspection area, and then we move to a production supply area. And that inventory is fed into the manufacturing process, and once the manufacturing happens, we ship the product back for quality inspection, eventually stored in another storage area, or moved into another area for goods issue to a distribution center. Layout here, but this is called as a plant, and it's also called as a plant and inventory, and also a manufacturing area. And that's basically what I want to show you guys, because we use the term plant in order to create this inventory. But either way, in order to create /MM02 or MM02, if you have an easy access screen, if you want to display a material, then you do MM03, and that's what it is. So similarly, you want to create a purchase order, ME21N. Purchase order takes a while, okay. And you want to change a purchase order, ME22N. You want to display a purchase order, ME23N. So 1, 2, 3 basically stands for create, change, and display. Now, that's not the case in all the data, but commonly, yes. Okay. So that's on a high level what the change, display, more normal. So on a high level, guys, that's what SAP is, and you can at the moment you basically know basic idea of ERP, what SAP is, and advantages, and accessing SAP, looking at some transaction code, difference between master data and transactional data, and etc. Now, one thing that we want to also briefly discuss is what exactly you do as an SAP consultant on a project, right? So you are a consultant. Now, obviously, you need some training. That's your first step. You need to get trained in SAP in order to, depending on the module you want to get into. Sometimes you might have sales and distribution background. Sometimes you have finance background. Some of you guys may have procurement or CRM background. Depending on background, you can come into any module here. Maybe you have programming background in different technology, and you can come into ABAP. Or you have networking background or hardware background, and you can come into a base. Usually people try to choose a module based on the domain or the background they have. That's typically how people get into. That's not how I was pulled into several years back. But a lot of that's typically how people get into SAP in world. And depending on which team you want to get into, you might have a lot of people from finance background get their 5 modules. So once you decide which module you want to get into, you need to get trained in the module. That's your first step. So as a consultant, what are the things you do in SAP and all those things? But being trained in SAP is not the only thing that is required, that is accepted in the market nowadays. Clients will look for folks with implementation exposure as well. SAP jobs are not just like in any job where you know the skill, you know the tool that you can get the job. You need to understand many things around being an SAP consultant. Being an SAP consultant, you have a larger role to play than just finishing training. That's what this slide is all about, where I want to quickly show you what exactly you'll be doing on projects in SAP, when you go on projects to work in SAP. SAP is an implementation. Remember we saw about that, we customize solutions for the business. So it's an implementation process where you as a consultant with other team members go to a client place and implement SAP for the client, and that implementation is done as per SAP methodology-based implementation process, which is a standard implementation process that is followed across the globe for SAP implementation. And every stage of the project, we do certain things, and everything that we do has something to do with you. And as a consultant, you have a role to play in every single phase of the project. For example, in the second phase, the process design phase, you need to, work on, business blueprint documents. In the previous phase, you need to work understanding the assets process. In the next phase, obviously, you have to, do all the test of writing and execution testing and everything. So there's so many different things that you do as a consultant. I know I'm streaming this through, usually I spend almost 40 minutes on this particular slide alone, which is a Monday meeting to make you guys understand better what you do as a consultant. But on a high level, what exactly will you be doing as a consultant in a project depends on which phase of the project you're hired into and what exactly your role is. Training is just a start, so that's not going to give you everything. It's not going to, tell you what exactly you'll be doing on projects unless you are on a project environment. So being a part of a project environment makes a lot of difference in terms of you understanding what exactly you'll be doing as an SAP consultant. All right, guys. So let's go back to my agenda here. And so before we go to the question and answer session, I see a lot of people have already asked questions, and I will come back to your questions. Guys, please type in your questions again, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But before that, feel free to take this consultant level exam that's available on our 8mm Smile portal. It's something that will test your skill set in SAP, in ERP basically. So we go to test section in 8mm Smile. You basically go to www.8mmsmile.com. And then you click on test, and there's a section called 101 ERP Certified Implementation Consultant Certificate Exam. The exam is free to take. The exam is alone free to take, and you see all these people have already taken this exam. And I'm pretty sure it's more than 100 of them have taken this exam so far. But this test will give you an idea about what exactly you do as an SAP ERP consultant, which is SAP consultant, and give you some insight into some things that you probably do not know. We have other exams too, or tests too that you can take. It's all free to take either way. Everything in 8mm Smile is free. The whole idea of this platform is that for that all the SAP newbies, freshers can interact and integrate and collaborate and network with other people and get some resources in one single place. That's the whole idea here. And we already have around 2,000 plus members, almost 2,100 members. A lot of freshers in SAP and folks in SAP who are basically, they all are from different locations. You see a lot of people in US, Arab, Morocco, India, all these different places. But either way, networking is very important. Obviously nowadays, we all use Facebook and other things, and networking gives you a lot of visibility into many different things, and this place will give you an idea as well. So obviously today's discussion was about SAP. It's an introduction into SAP. Don't assume that this is all SAP is. It's a big ocean. There's so many things to learn, and there's so many things to to know here, and this is just a starting point. This 1 hour session is purely a starting point in the SAP, just to give you an awareness what SAP is and all those things. Maybe it gave you an idea, but there's so many things to go from now. Either way, please shoot your questions, and I'll be happy